Hello, and welcome to Tom Myers versus the rest of the world. Elon Musk is now on the board of directors of Twitter. With this tendency to allow racism to spread throughout the companies he runs, we can expect the return of Donald Trump, Roger Stone, and Marjorie Taylor Greene to the platform any day now. Republicans reacted to the claim that they didn't want 9 black justices on the Supreme Court by saying that they wanted 9 black justices in the mold of Clarence Thomas. It says a lot about Republicans that their ideal black jurist is a sexual predator married to a woman who tried to overturn a legitimate election. Maury Povich announced that his show was going to be ending. Now, arguments over paternity can be relegated right where they belong. Facebook comment threads. The Baltimore Orioles are getting ready for their regular season by posting a photo of its stadium on social media with the caption, "The yard is waiting for you." Given their entire payroll is less than that of Max Scherzer's salary, the yard is going to keep waiting throughout the regular season of 2025. Louis C.K. won a Grammy for Best Comedy Album at this year's Grammy Awards. Thankfully, his latest award may be something he will proudly display for other comics instead of his cock. And now on with the show. Please join me in welcoming Jeff Hysen, Abby Mello, and Michele Wojciechowski.
Hey, Tom.
Hello.
And there it is already.
I was just about to say, who had less than 2 minutes? Who had a minute 15?
We should take bets like beforehand.
It's the only way we're all going to be able to make money on this thing. Everyone, welcome. What's everyone been up to this week?
You guys, I went to a mall today. I don't know if anybody's been to a mall recently. It is a dystopian nightmare. It took me 10 minutes. I had to return something to Macy's. It took me 10 minutes to find anybody who works there. Then as the woman is like doing my exchange, this guy wanders up and he's like, "Hey baby, why don't you give me a kiss?" to the woman who's doing the transaction. And so then she's like, no, sir. And she's got the till open and he's like, "Why don't you give me some money for a sandwich?" And she's like, "I can't help you, sir." And he's like, "You can't give me any change for a sandwich?" And she was like, "That's against the rules." And then he wanders off and I thought she knew him, complete stranger to her. This guy just wandered up to her, demanded that he could like sexually assault her on the mouth and then wanted money. I don't know what's happening at the Town Mall anymore, but I will return my Macy's things via mail from now on, I think.
To be fair, at least he only asked for money for the sandwich and didn't actually ask her to make him one.
That's a good point.
It could have been a lot worse.
Were there zombies there?
I don't know. It was just such a strange experience in the children's clothing section of a Macy's.
Oh, there's no creepy undertones to that at all.
I was going to say, you were in children's clothing.
That was the only open register I could find because no one works there. Like there were no employees. They're just people wandering around trying to kiss people and get money for a sandwich.
I can't beat that.
I thought you were getting ready to make some big announcement as to why you were in the children's clothing section, because like this podcast is the episode to go ahead and break.
Right, that's where I would announce a pregnancy to people.
Well, if you're going to, Tom will set you up somehow,
Within reason, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, that wasn't weird at all.
Well,
I'm registered on Tom's Patreon.
but Tom, I wanted to mention, as you said, that it's opening day this Thursday. It's very exciting. And speaking of abandoned places that will be desolate and bereft of human beings, Oriole Park should be a great place to stretch out and not be near anybody if you're still concerned about COVID.
I have alwawas wanted to find a place where I can go ahead and read the entire Harry Potter series in peace and quiet. And I feel like if the Orioles the Oriole Park is the place to do it.
Oh, you guys are so mean.
I think I can, if there's extra innings, I might be able to actually accomplish that.
Well, they haven't lost any games yet, and they do have that promising young catcher.
Okay, that's one.
Yeah, good.
I think we managed to keep John Means. That's two. So
yeah, The shortstop, there's a shortstop who's pretty good. I forgot his name.
He'll be traded next year, so I'm not even gonna try and remember it.
Right. Okay.
Well, my husband pointed out that Trey Mancini, whom I think is attractive, is well young enough to be my son. And that kind of turned me off from baseball for the rest of the season. Well, I got my second COVID booster.
Yay.
That's it. And again, it knocked me out for the weekend. I mean, I haven't had any kind of side effects except for every time I've gotten a shot, I thought I was fine Saturday morning. You know, the first few hours I'm up, I'm like cranking, doing stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden my husband was out. I texted him and I was like, I have to lie down like immediately. So, and that lasted for 2 days. So, and then I was better by Monday, and it's better than COVID. So there's that.
Very good.
Amen to that.
Well, there's one bright side that we managed to pull from this chat. There's one bright ray of hope. So thank you for that. None of us have COVID yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Fortunately for Chris Rock, he's become accustomed to the risk of assault because of his training, with the prevalent lack of security at most comedy clubs. Will Smith yelled at Chris Rock to keep his wife's name out of his mouth. Shouldn't he have yelled that at the guy she was cheating on him with?
Oh.
And if it's okay to deck somebody who makes hairline jokes, then I'll be busy for the next 5 years. And that's before my prison sentence. Joining us this week to discuss the Chris Rock Will Smith situation, please welcome Haywood Turnipseed.
Hey, all right.
Haywood, welcome
What's
to the show,
happening?
man.
What's happening?
That's
What's
right.
happening? Yeah, man. So what's happening?
Not
You wanna
much.
talk about that?
Yeah, why the hell not? I mean, we usually don't cover like entertainment stuff on this podcast. It's usually like news and current events. But so Haywood, what's your take on the whole Chris Rock Will Smith incident? I'm sure you have a few opinions about that.
Opinions. I mean, you said it best, right? Lack of security in comedy clubs. Like, it's not that this is anything that we should be used to, but in what we do, nobody's getting patted down before they enter a bar, right? Nobody's getting. I mean, it's in all the spaces where it shouldn't be. You know, everything about it is dangerous. People drinking, people some people coming to have a good time, some people to mess up that good time, all of that stuff, right? That's the stand-up part of it. To answer your question about this incident, I have been slapped by people, not in comedy, just in real life. I'm just going to take real life from that. I have been slapped for running my mouth. I have slapped people for running their mouth. There's a saying that sometimes an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. And I believe that is what we saw. And I say believe because I don't know either one of these gentlemen. And let's be honest, for what we know about Will Smith, other than the joke about being, from West Philadelphia, born and raised, this is out of character. Yeah. Also, it's out of character for somebody like Chris Rock to take that. So you go, whoa, what is happening here? Is it because we're on this international stage and this Oscar happening? You look at all of that. You look at the fallout for either one of them. Is it worth it? One of the things I love about Chris Rock, which helped me become a better comedian, I hope, is that he said, say what you got to say. As long as they can't whoop you, what they're gonna do to you. And then we see, okay. So I say there's that part, right? There's the retaliation. As we look at it, we go, I'm gonna be honest, man. I mean, that's why you got me here, right? I'm looking at somebody that I love get smacked, and I'm like, oh, come on. But then I'm also looking at somebody that I like, smack them, and I'm like, oh, come on. So it's like uncles for me fighting. You don't pick one. You're just like, oh, well, you guys, what is this all about? Why are y'all doing this? And I have uncles who have fought. You guys are from Baltimore, except for Jeff, but Queens, we've all had uncles who have fought. I'm sorry, it's that life. Because I said this to somebody, I was like, no, I didn't. Okay, cool. Then you have had a privileged life, because I have had uncles who got down and dirty with one another. And you'd be like, man, you don't pick a side. everybody loses. The whole family is like, now you really have ruined Thanksgiving. You have ruined Christmas. You know, it could be Ash Wednesday, it could be Yom Kippur, it could be Ramadan, it could be Eid. It doesn't matter. Whatever we're happy, whatever Arbor Day, it could be Arbor Day. You know, here to celebrate our love of trees, and you two, mother. You know, you two. Like, I've had one uncle, I've had my aunt call the cops on one uncle because the other uncle needed to have the cops called on him, to be quite honest with you, because the battle wouldn't stop. But that doesn't mean we like or love them any less. So as we look at these people in the public eye, it was, you know, it was really, it's a good teacher moment. It's a good talking moment, talking to my children right now about what they say, what they don't say. Be mindful, words have power. They do push people, they do move people. People should have better control over themselves. So also let's look at that. Let's look at, you know, restraint. Let's look at that. Like, walking away is extremely important. And I have done that. I've had to do that. So, you know, you don't get pat on the back for walking away, right? You just walked away because that's what you needed to do. And that's not why you did it, which is kind of what I dig about, if I'm looking at it now, what is this, Thursday, and it was 2 weeks ago? I'm looking at it now and I'm like, Chris Rock ain't said nothing about it, which is kind of cool, because he did what somebody should do in that moment. You walk away. All right, we're not gonna do this. I'm not gonna do this with you. See you, you know? But I'm never visiting that moment again. So I'm cool if he never talks about it. If he never talks about it, I'm cool with it. If he talks about what I woulda, shoulda, coulda, then that's the pressure of comedy. And again, that's the pressure of celebrity. And the name of his tour is Ego Death, right? So this is something that, I mean, no better way for your ego to die than to kill it, you know? So this is something. And at the same time, it's absolutely fucking nothing. I mean, literally, one moment we're talking about the Ukraine, that's when we're talking about Will Smith. It's like he did something from Men in Black, where he put the flashlight up and was like, forget what's going on in the world again. You know?
Right.
You know, it's like, hey, forget all that shit. Just like, I mean, the same thing happened with COVID. You know, it was George Floyd and then his wife and their entanglement. And I'm like, why do we got to understand? I had to teach quantum theory to people for them to understand what even entanglement meant. Because I was like, what they're saying is, in the reality, they go the fancy way around saying they got some shit that we all know about now. I don't want to know this stuff about your life.
The retaliation thing, I kind of want to visit a little bit, where if, you know, Will Smith hadn't done what he did, like if he hadn't gone up and slapped Chris Rock.
In the face. Yeah. Let's be honest, in the face.
Yeah. Do you think that, I don't know, Will Smith could have come out looking better and maybe Chris Rock would have taken some heat for telling that joke?
Oh, he could have just yelled it out. You yell out the same thing with the same energy, you get the same exact reaction. But let's be honest, this is Will Smith. Now people may be like, whoa. But the audience had already reacted to the joke. We already got that part. I mean, we as comedians know what happened with that joke. It's not that it even fell flat. It got the groan, the whoa. You know, it got some chuckles and then it got that groan. That's what happens, right? This is what we do. Laughter is an involuntary response. Sometimes we laugh because we're confused or because of things. You know, we say things are funny that are not. Oh, it's funny that this happened. Oh, it's funny that it went that way. Well, I'll tell you what's funny. I got COVID and diabetes. You know what I mean? Like, nothing is funny about those things happening. But we use that word to blanket to the sixth sense, to blanket our lack of understanding of what's happening. So to answer your question, do I think we would be looking at this completely different? Yes, we would be looking at Will Smith going, whoa, he was serious. After a moment where everybody already knew that it failed. So then more people would be like, should comedians say this or shouldn't comedians say that? You know, this is where remember, here's the thing about stand-up comedy. It's uniquely American, right? When I say it's uniquely American, it is, as far as art forms go, jazz, hip hop, stand-up comedy, these are art forms that were created out of America and the freedom of speech. Now, we know from any other cultures, you couldn't say what you wanted to say and just speak your mind and things would happen. Hell, what is off with his head, off with their head, right? That's the whole court jester thing. So I say that to say, coming from the West, something coming from the West, coming from a philosophy where you can't stop my mouth unless you put something over it, then everyone has the right to say what they would like to say. But we also have an understanding within that inalienable right? That's our First Amendment, the freedom of speech. I can say what's on my mind, but I have a responsibility to not go in a movie theater and yell fire.
So one of the things, and I'm going to backstory this a little bit, one of the initial backlashes that I saw that I think were dancing around was people being comics coming out and saying, well, now I'm not going to, what if somebody doesn't like my joke about this? Or what if somebody doesn't like my joke about that? Now they're going to feel emboldened to, you know, make it a big deal. And I think there's a difference between telling a joke and coming after an audience member. And
Right.
I think there's a big difference there. As a comic, if I personally don't do crowd work, and I choose not, you know, to, and if I do engage with the audience, it's in a very positive manner. But I think there's just a really big difference between telling a joke and specifically targeting and insulting somebody who's sitting 10 feet away from you, whether that's the Grammys or that's a bar show.
Agreed. I mean, that's really it. And that's not really what we do, right? But then people, because lay folks go, well, don't go sit in the front row. Why wouldn't you want to sit in the front row of a comedy show? That's exactly where I want to be, because I want to understand. What I want to do is understand what the comedian is doing, learn their tics and all that stuff. But before I decided to step on stage and step through the looking glass, I love being in the front row. I mean, that's a part of the joy of going to see a performer do what they do. And I've never been messed with, you know. Hey,
I have.
You have?
Yep.
Yeah.
You can see I have had big ass hair since birth. Okay. I got it all cut off one time. That was even worse because I had to use a curling iron for the first time in my life. I kept burning my forehead and the tops of my ears. So I was like, okay, I'm just letting it grow out and people have to deal with it. She made fun of my hair for I don't know how long. It seemed like forever, but a few minutes. Well, if you knew me better, Haywood, I've never assaulted anyone, I'm proud to say, but I have been known to, my husband and some close friends have seen me when I get angry and they say that my eyes turn black. And I don't really know what that means, but I have both of my parents' tempers, you know, so I get infuriated, you know, and I thought, well, you know what, if she's going to make fun of me. And then she made fun of almost every woman in the front.
Oh.
And I just glared at her. I folded my arms and I stared and I glared. And normally I would not do that to another comic. Yeah. But she was making fun of a pretty young woman, probably in her 20s, who had large breasts, and she wouldn't stop. Like slut jokes and this jokes and that jokes. And I'm sitting there thinking, you have alienated first of all, she alienated every woman in the front, you know? And then it just was really disturbing.
She doubled down, right? We really want people on our side.
Yep.
I mean, that's the nature of stand-up is opposite from everything that a human being is, you know?
The debate over why Will Smith didn't leave the venue following his assault on Chris Rock was settled when it was discovered that Chris Rock said Smith shouldn't leave. Oscars producer Will Packer explains why in this Good Morning America interview.
I made that clear, like, Rock, you tell me, whatever you want to do, brother. And he was telling me, I'm fine. Let's just get past this. I'm getting out of here. I can't believe this happened. The LAPD came and needed to talk to Chris. And so they came into my office and they were laying out very clearly what Chris's rights were. And they were saying, this is battery. We will go get him. We are prepared. We're prepared to get him right now. You can press charges. We can arrest him. As they were talking, Chris was, he was being very dismissive of those options. He was like, no, I'm fine. He was like, no. And even to the point where I said, Rock, let him finish. And they said, you know, would you like us to take any action? And he said, no. He said, no. And I didn't have any conversation with Will. They were about to physically remove Will Smith. And I had not been a part of those conversations. And so I immediately went to the Academy leadership that was on site, and I said, Chris Rock doesn't want that. I said, Rock has made it clear that he does not want to make a bad situation worse. That was Chris's energy. His tone was not retaliatory. His tone was not aggressive and angry. And so I was advocating what Rock wanted in that time, which was not to physically remove Will Smith at that time, because as it has now been explained to me, that was the only option at that point. It has been explained to me that there was a conversation that I was not a part of to ask him to voluntarily leave.
I mean, Chris Rock really comes out looking like the better person in this whole debacle. I mean, from making a joke that, you know, in some people's eyes could have been questionable, could have been deemed offensive to, you know, number one, just moving right along after he'd been pretty much assaulted on stage, to we've now learned, you know, saying that the person who assaulted him shouldn't be removed.
He does. He comes across well. And the fact that he didn't immediately start talking about it in his show that 2 nights later was classy.
I mean, history is only going to tell us how this all plays out. He does look good right now. Just hearing that, you go, oh, okay. But and then there's also, I should say, but there's also the other side where you go, you got to go back to Brooklyn. You know, you got to go back to Brooklyn. What's Brooklyn gonna say? What you know? What do you? I don't know, because that makes me feel different. I ain't gonna lie, that makes me feel different. Part of it is like, hey, why didn't you do something? Say something. But also, maybe that's toxic. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It makes people ask questions, because I'm asking questions to both sides. Like, what would I have done in that moment? I'm not in that moment, so I can't even say.
I know a lot of people have been drawing unnecessary parallels to domestic violence, but listening to this clip was the first time that my mind actually went there. Like, I wonder how many women who had to talk to the police after their significant other hit them in the face were doing the same thing. And like, did those police care as much as they cared when they saw it on national television? I just wonder.
Again, this gets us into that place. Physical altercations. I mean, are we beyond that? Are we past that? Will Smith himself has said that is not the way. You know, that is not the way. Malcolm X himself. People talk about Malcolm X, they talk about Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X was like, you know, he was not an advocate of violence, he was an advocate of self-defense. And in his later years, when he became El Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, he was like, that's not it either. You know, it really is about who you are and how you want to move forward. Wise person said, you know, from a distance, don't argue with a fool, right? Because from a distance, you can't tell who from who.
Chris Rock has always been in biting, uncompromising, perpetual roast mode, no matter the target. Here he is on David Letterman's show, just days after the talk show host confessed to workplace romances and marital.
Good to see you, my friend.
Jay!
How you doing?
What the hell happened to your voice, Dave?
I don't know. It's just gone.
What the hell? You sound like an old-ass man, Dave.
At my age, the warranty begins to run out. Yeah, I don't know.
Things going bad, huh?
Oh. And people say, well, do you feel all right otherwise? No, I feel like hell otherwise.
Damn, man. And you still doing the show?
Well, more or less. I don't know that it would hold up in court.
Whoa! You're a rich man. You could just go home. Wife's still mad at you, ain't she?
Well, I don't feel so good.
Why am I going to drive back to Connecticut to a mean woman? I might as well just stay here and do the show with no voice. I love you, honey. I've been there, Dave.
Is that right?
I've been there.
Let's talk about
I've been in the cave, baby.
Well, now, tell me about you. I know the last time you were here, you were just about to go on a world tour or had just finished a world tour. How do you do that?
How do I tour, Dave?
Do you ever get sick when you're out there on the road?
I do get sick, Dave, and if my wife is mad at me, I just add on shows. I just add on.
Keep going.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we gonna do Roanoke next week. What the hell am I coming home to a bad woman for?
I understand. Well,
it's rough, Dave.
Yeah. Not much I can say.
I know. I was backstage and fired all the cute girls. You got a bunch of fat old guys back there. The whole... It's horrible, man. The vibe is just horrible, man. The band can't take it no more.
I'll tell you something, some of those guys are starting to look pretty good.
I mean, it could just be the fact that, David Letterman is a fellow comedian, but I mean, he's an example of someone who was able to take, whatever crisis was going on in his life at the time, understand these jokes are being made about him, and he's able to take it. Whereas I don't know if it's just the psychology of someone who has never been a comedic writer, has always just acted and recited lines that have always been written for him. But I mean, that's also something to consider.
Man, no, it's not. That's what we do. Roger's show was what we fucking do, right? We rib each other, we talk about each other, and you want to see the court jester take down the king. In that moment, Rock did his job. He did it with with the collective audience. The only reason the G.I. Jane joke didn't land because the audience, some knew she had alopecia, some didn't, but nobody thought of that reference and saw it like that, and they weren't in the limelight. It wasn't at that moment, So again, there's placement, there's timing. This is why we love Chris Rock, because he did that at the MTV Awards. He did that at the Oscars before, you know what I mean? He eviscerated Hollywood and the whiteness of it all. You know what I mean? And then he turned, but he did do a joke about Jada Pinkett early on. Some people say this is carryover from that. But I said that to say he too. This is what I say, when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, shit happens. I think two people who know each other, I don't know how well they know each other, had a disagreement and it played out in public. They're going to figure it out. They're going to work it out. Both of them will be fine. But then this also, in the culture that we live in, the culture of celebrity, we look at this and go, what happened? They had a disagreement. A very public disagreement.
In conclusion, maybe we all need to consider how our words and actions result in the consequences that follow. For example, I just hope that Will Smith doesn't find out that I'm the one who's been sending him all the direct messages, telling him that Getting Jiggy With It, Miami, and his cover of Just the Two of Us are shit. A lot of the criticism that Will Smith took had to do with the fact that he portrayed Muhammad Ali, yet couldn't land a punch that night. Personally, I don't think it should be that big of a deal. For if Muhammad Ali were still alive today and he saw what Will Smith did, he wouldn't have said a word. And on that note, that's our show. I want to thank Jeff Hysen, Abby Mello, Michele Wojciechowski, and Haywood Turnipseed. This episode was written and hosted by Tom Myers with panelists Jeff Hysen, Abby Mello, and Michele Wojciechowski, and guest Haywood Turnipseed. Theme music by Jeroen Vandenhurik. Executive producers Tom Myers, Matt Connarton for ipmNation, and Eddie Carson for Odyssey Radio. Thank you for listening, and please visit tommyers.us.